Hi everyone and welcome back to episode 12 of the Rubbish Talk podcast with myself, Heather Beattie.
Myself, Alistair Meldon.
So for episode 12 we have Albion Environmental's very own Jane Bond. Will be taking the hot seat for our guest interview this week, but before that, as usual, myself and Alistair have quite a few news topics to quickly fire through this week. So Alistair, do you want to kick off?
Absolutely. The hot news of the week is Mars bars are going to be supplied in a paper wrapper. And it did make me sort of question whether it's going to be 100% paper wrapper, which I very much doubt. I would think to keep the quality of the Mars bar to what we normally expect, I think that paper will have some sort of plastic content in it. And it does make you wonder whether plastic Mars bar wrapper properly disposed, is that better for the environment than a paper with some plastic Mars bar wrappers? So I think the jury's out there, and I've seen a few debates back and forward on LinkedIn of what is right and what is wrong. So
that could be your next viral LinkedIn post, Alistair. Now that's what you're known for.
I think somebody's beaten me to that one already, actually.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Go. Yep. And the next one we're talking about is slightly different for us because it's to do with emissions, but the Glasgow low emission zone is due to start very soon. It's going to start on the 1st of June. And that means if you've not got a modern car or truck or van, then you can't go into the centre of Glasgow without being subjected to fairly big fines. And the logic behind all this is, I'm not sure you know, but the number of people who die from air pollution in the UK is pretty significant every year. They reckon it's between 28,000 and 36,000 people a year. So obviously it's a real public health issue. So try to make sure vehicles are cleaner before they go into the city. But one of the issues it's causing is, I know it's causing an issue for waste collection vehicles. So a lot of trucks are not Euro 6. So they're not actually allowed to go into the city. So there are some operators who have been trying for probably the best part of a year to buy new trucks, and they're actually struggling to get the trucks in time so they can actually continue collections in Glasgow. And I would think that issue would be reflected across other, food deliveries, other vehicles that need to go into the city. So I think it'll be interesting when the ban comes in the 1st of June.
Yeah, I think it seems like, kind of a lot is happening just now between the Glasgow's low emission zone. I feel as though that's came around really, really quickly. Between that and, well, potentially DRS as well launching in the 1 year. We'll see. Got a lot of upcoming news, I would say, to keep track of how all these projects are going. But I think that's an interesting one. It's really going to launch really soon, and we'll see some feedback from that. But another topic I thought we would discuss, which everyone who listens knows, it was quite a regular feature on our news item for the first few weeks, but we're back on talking about vapes again because we just keep seeing more and more headlines about it, and there's been some really good calculations done by, it was actually a LinkedIn post that we've shared via Alexander Ryan. So he broke down some of the stats about disposable vapes, and kind of the one that caught our eye the most was the equivalent of about 6,200 Tesla Model 3s, as the equivalent of using them once and then throwing them away, in comparison to the amount of disposable vapes thrown away in the UK just last year. So I mean, it just sounds absolutely ridiculous. Using an electric vehicle once and throwing it away is essentially what we've done across the UK in the last year with disposable vapes. So really, really interesting. We can link as well on the episode notes and on the Rubbish Talk website to Alexander's LinkedIn post as well. But it breaks it down in quite some detail, a couple of the stats to do with the batteries and the disposable vapes as well. And the other kind of headline stat, which I thought was really interesting, he also mentioned, so the number of disposable vapes sold last year could have powered 474,000 homes for roughly 2 hours, which is just, especially in the times we're talking about the energy crisis, cost of living crisis, it just seems absolute madness.
Well, it's incredible when you put it in that sort of number. So well done to, did you say it was Ryan that put that together?
Alexander Ryan.
Yeah. The other news about vapes is NHS England have woken up to the health. Well, I think they were maybe awake to the issues, but they're really highlighting on BBC News the health impacts of vapes. And one of the mad things that I never realised was the manufacturers can actually give away free vapes to teenagers. But nicotine in them, that's perfectly legal. So the NHS England's try to highlight that as a major health concern. So hopefully the health concerns and the environmental concerns will merge for some proper action on, particularly on disposal.
Again, same as the vapes, we mentioned it, I think, our first couple of episodes week after week, but we've had a bit of a hiatus, so we're back talking about DRS again. And what is actually going on? Does anyone know?
I think at the moment it's got a little bit bogged down in politics between UK government and Scotland government, and I'm not quite sure anybody actually knows what's going on. But the bit I do know is Clarity Scotland, who will be the people that will actually be delivering the contract, have got some very shiny new bin lorries that they're having to park up around the country. And somebody very kindly sent me a photograph of one, and their slogan on the side of the bin lorry is "Getting empties off Scotland Street." That's their slogan. So there you go. You've heard it here before you'll see them out in the street, because they're all hidden away at the moment in various yards.
Well, so that's breaking news straight from the podcast then.
Absolutely. I'll not divulge my sources or the location of these vehicles yet.
Right.
And then I think finally for news, some positive news. Zero Waste Scotland opened up a new fund, Circular Textiles Fund, and that's open to anybody that's looking at if you like, circular models for fashion, upholstery, anything to do with the textile sector. And that fund is open for businesses and organisations across Scotland at the moment. So if you're interested in that, again, we can put a link on the show notes. But again, if you just Google Zero Waste Scotland Circular Textiles Fund, I'm sure you would find it.
Yeah, we can pop the link in the notes as well. I think just on a final note, for anyone who listened to a previous episode with George Niblock, I mentioned a catchy little litter song which he's kindly found for us. So I have had a scour across the internet to see if it lives on YouTube or anywhere, but I do have a snippet of it which I'll post into the podcast, and has now been in my head for the last 2 days straight. So turn off now if you don't want to be singing the Ayrshire Litter Pickers song for the next few days. But we thought we would mention as well, the song was performed by a guy, Alistair MacDonald, who is quite a well-known local folk singer, and he's kind of donated quite a lot of his time for similar projects to this, and especially for local schools. So he's got a good wee voice on the track, and it's very catchy. We'll pop a wee snippet in for anyone who wants to listen.
Sounds good. And I probably shouldn't have confessed to George that I've not actually listened to it yet, so I'll need to get around to listening.
Oh, we are Ayrshire's litter pickers, and we all adopt a street where we clear up careless litter, because we like our towns to look so clean and neat, and so we hope our...
Well, that's us for all the news items for this week. What we're going to do now is go to our guests. Our guest is Jane Bond from Albion Environmental, and we'll get the formal introduction in a minute. But if any of you ever listened to the very first intro podcast we did actually talk about Jane. Jane was going to be involved in the hosting of the podcast. So for whatever reason, we never actually managed to involve Jane in it. But unfortunately, my co-host, Heather Beattie, has decided to depart to warmer climates. What we're going to do is we've managed to rope Jane in to be my new co-host. Whether she'll manage, how many episodes is that, Heather, without I don't think we've managed to fall out properly yet.
No, this is 12. We've been very good.
I think we've had 12, and we've only had I think we've had technical issues, but I don't think we've had any sort of major issues in terms of getting them put together. So before we go to Jane, I would like to say thank you very much to Heather for taking this mad idea and helping me and us turn it into reality. So thank you, Heather.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, I've been very grateful to be a part of the podcast, and now that's us on record forever. Once we've put it out to the universe on the internet, it's always there, so you can't get rid of me that easily. But yeah, we're really looking forward to passing over to Jane. So officially, Jane, this is me handing over the baton as co-host. So we'll use your first episode to pretty much talk all about you, so our listeners can get to know you first.
Well, thanks, Heather. I think you're going to be quite a one to follow. Yeah, I'll try my best.
Oh, we have every faith. Don't worry, we're confident. It's Alistair's. This is very precious to Alistair, so I don't think he would have asked someone who wasn't up to the job.
Right. Okay. I'm
So-
No
taking that
pressure,
baton.
Jane, no pressure.
No pressure. Thanks.
No pressure. You're ready for it. Okay, so we're going to just introduce you slowly, and we'll do our normal guest format. So we normally start and say, tell us who you currently work for, and a bit of background about the company. However, we already know that. So Jane, instead, do you want to tell our listeners a bit about your role as Project and Business Development Director within Albion and what you do here?
Yeah, I can tell you all about that. I suppose I've been with Albion like 4 years now. And part of what I do is looking at different projects, managing projects. And what I like about it is just such a wide variety of different waste management projects, from training to, going and looking at a big tub full of batteries, so it's very varied. And my role is to try and make sure all the projects are running on time, to budget, and to the satisfaction of clients, basically. No, I wouldn't say it's always straightforward as that, but that's the idea anyway.
Yeah, that was just a few things that you do there, Jane. Just oversee everything, go to site, complete projects, deliver on budget. So yeah, you're oversee a lot of the really interesting projects as well. And I think a lot of the team at Albion, what everyone likes about it is we get stuck in and you get to go out and have those days out on site as well and see firsthand all the clients and the projects we work with.
Yeah, I think that's important, because you can't always tell people or ask people to do things that you won't do yourself. So it's going out and doing these waste composition analysis and raking through other people's bins, which again, is not ideal, but that's the job, or part of the job as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So tell me, Jane, I obviously know you, another guest that I know the background to, but tell the listeners what brought you into the world of waste management. Did you fall in by accident, or were you one of the few?
I was probably one of the very few, and I think the only other person I've heard so far on these podcasts is Stephen Glenn, who actually decided I wanted to go into waste management at the beginning. So I think I must be a bit strange, a bit weird, but I did a degree in geology at Manchester University, and as part of my geology degree, I was really interested in environmental stuff, and particularly landfill. And I kind of thought that actually, from a geology point of view, geologists and geology was really important if you were looking at landfill from a containment point of view and groundwater point of view, gas point of view. So my dissertation in my third year at university was the role of the geologist in the practice of landfilling waste. And I've still got that. So that was my first thing. So that was straight out of uni, and then from there, I joined a consultant for a year, and it was an engineering consultant, Wardell Armstrong, based in Leigh in North Manchester. I worked there for a year, but I still wanted to work in waste, and I was getting lots and lots of different experience. I think the amount of stuff I learned in that first year was amazing. And then there's a job came up with Shropshire County Council, which was for a hydrogeologist. And I was like, yeah, that'll be me. So I went for the interview and got the job, and then worked for Shropshire County Council Waste Disposal and Waste Regulation for about 7 years. Worked in environmental management, groundwater, gas, went around monitoring gas, looked at it. It was a great experience because we had our own labs as well as part of the council. So we were doing a lot of stuff on clay liners, sampling clay, taking different permeabilities, different compactions for clay lining. And we were also looking at PFA as well, because where we work, one of the sites in Telford has got a lot of PFA from energy, big the cooling towers and stuff.
Sorry, Jane. Remember, you need to explain what PFA is.
Oh, right, okay. A PFA is pulverized fuel ash. So it's basically from the power stations that were around Telford, because a lot of power stations and things like that around there. So so it's trying to use that to see whether or not it was any use as a lining material. But yeah, no, it was really interesting. And then I worked there for a few years, and then I went off and did an MSc in environmental pollution control in Manchester, again in Manchester. And I'd kind of said that I wanted to go traveling, but I also wanted to do a project. And at that point, this was 1991, there was lots of synthetic liners coming on board, and most of them were being produced and laid and stuff in the States. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the States, and I'm going to go and do this project, and I'm going to go around all these places and look at synthetic liners of landfills, CQA, and actually go down to Texas and see them being made. I thought, do you know, how sad is that when somebody's got a year out and they take 6 months holiday and it's like go and look at landfill sites in America. But anyway, it's brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I got time off my work to do it. And when I'd finished, I wrote a presentation and stuff like that, and they gave me my job back in the council. And I did get some funding as well. So I worked there for a while, and again, I think working for the council and actually having access to landfill and just being able to see what happens, liners, and because we were starting to do synthetic liners, also bentonite enriched sand liners as well, and also gas utilisation, removing leachate. And one of the things as well was we had a lot of the landfills were in coal measure strata, so there was a lot of natural methane and carbon dioxide. So it was trying to establish what was natural methane and what was methane from the landfill, which was sometimes so it was trying to establish and identify that background levels, how important background levels were before you started at the landfill. Yeah.
And this was probably in the period that 96% of UK waste went to landfill, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, everything went to landfill. There was, there's nothing as fancy as recycling. Oh my God. So I moved up to Scotland in 96, and I worked for, just before then, it was when the Environment Agency and SEPA were being created. So I worked for the Environment Agency for a short period, and then I moved up to Scotland and worked for, it was Babty Group, then big Scottish consultants based in Glasgow, and did loads of work on, again, it was waste management, landfill. And as we got, more and more, it was to do with sustainability and different methods of waste treatment. So, it started moving on to recycling, to, energy from waste, pyrolysis, gasification, all these fancy things. And then there was a lot of this PFI stuff as well, PPP, private public finance initiatives, and PPP, public. I can't even remember what PPP stands for. Bastard.
Public
public and
private partnership, I think. From
yes,
memory.
something
Yeah.
like that. So there's all these sort of partnerships being with the councils and the waste management contractors, and it was massive contracts. Was getting involved in some of those as well. And then Jacobs, who's a big American conglomerate, I suppose, took over Babty, and things changed. The work wasn't as exciting, wasn't as interesting. I was working on big, major, massive projects instead of quite a lot of the small, individual, interesting projects. And so I moved from there and I started to work for SEPA, Scottish Environment Protection Agency. I'm sure everybody knows that acronym, but I'll give it that one anyway.
Yeah.
Never assume, or not assuming.
All right, okay. So then I went to work for SEPA, which, I worked there. I think I worked there for about 6 years. And I enjoyed it because, again, it was moving into more sustainability, moving into green jobs, green businesses, looking at how different businesses can improve their sustainability, reducing energy, reducing water. And it was the Vibes Awards, which is a Scottish Environment Business Awards, which is what's good for the environment is good for business, is the sort of strapline thing. So I really enjoyed that because I got to see lots of different smaller businesses who were like, a lot of them, well, it's a lot of big businesses as well, but a lot of small business that were developing their products or developing their processes to improve the environment, improve energy and all that kind of thing. So it was really interesting. Quite a lot of focus on the whiskey industry. And improving the greening of the whiskey industry, which was really interesting, from like anaerobic digestion through to packaging and reducing the packaging. So that was really interesting. But then after a while, I got a bit bored. It was kind of like, it was really interesting, but I just felt it was the same thing. I was doing the same thing, but just with different companies. So.
Right.
And I went, right, I don't want to move back into a big consultancy. I was like, nah, it's not really for me, not again. So and I was like, Alistair, we got a job. So so I moved into Albion and I really enjoy it because it's like lots of different projects, and you can start and finish them. It's not like you're stuck in the middle of a massive project that you never see the end of.
Yeah.
So and there's lots of good people and I get to drive down to the seaside to come to my work. So yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think, your brief summary there, you've covered so much, and I think that fits really well with Albion and the variety of work that we offer and the variety of projects that you get involved in, Jane, because you've obviously saw, throughout your career, especially how much things have changed as well since you started out. So I think your kind of expertise that you bring to all the projects and to the wider team as well is kind of your whole story there summarised in a couple of minutes just shows how much you've learned over the years that now is almost like completely like gold dust for the rest of the team who haven't been seen and been involved in such a variety of projects.
It's a bit scary because I kind of look and I started doing my waste management journey in 1989. It's like you look back and you think, oh my goodness, that is like 30 years. When I'm doing my training and I go in and they say, oh, tell us about yourself, it's like, oh, I must have started at the waste management industry when I was about 10,
Yeah.
That's like in my slide notes when I'm presenting a lecture, and it's like I've been in the industry for 20 years, and then I think about it and think, maybe it's a wee bit longer than that.
Yeah.
You're just sticking with that number.
I think what's good is like having come into moving into Scotland, it's like 96. It's quite a small industry, but there's lots of people in there that I know and I've been working with for a long time, and you can go to for advice or whatever. So it is quite interesting. I suppose what's interesting for me as well is when I first started, there was in an office of about 400, there was two female technical staff, and that was it. Whereas now, that it's almost, I don't know whether it is 50-50, but there's a lot more females who walk into meetings or presentations and things, and before you would walk in, there'd be a sea of grey suits, whereas now you walk in and there's lots of, female women in there as well. So it's really, it is nice seeing that change in the
I take it the
industry.
same probably out on site as well, Jane. There's probably a lot more females now out on site working from when you first started.
Yes and no. I mean, I've never been on a CQA site for capping a landfill site or drilling boreholes that has a female crew, but you never know. I might not be seeing the right people.
Yeah. Well,
It's still, I feel that like the Institute of Waste Management and these type of seminars are, I'm not saying they're 50-50, but they're certainly getting better. But I was up at a conference, the APSE, Association of Public Service Excellence, last week, and I would say it was about 80% or maybe even more than 80% male dominated.
really?
And that's generally local authorities. The conference is pretty much for the refuse collection, the street cleansing, grounds maintenance, roads people. And it's still very, very much male dominated. And also the typical age was 50 and above. So we've got a bit of a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
I was interested there, Jane. You mentioned Vibes Awards. It's not something we've mentioned on the podcast before. They're still, I think the entrance for this year have just closed. Have they just closed, or they currently open?
The finalists have just been announced, actually.
It was
something on my email. Yeah, no, the finalists have just been announced. So there's quite a range of companies in there. And what's nice is you get from restaurants, that are trying to take in more local food, local ingredients, trying to reduce their waste, looking at plated waste because I mean you get so much waste just from plates. People get their food and then they don't eat the bit of salad on the side, or there's just too much. A lot of these buffets, for instance, great to go and slot the stuff on your plate, but at the end there's still a load left. So, but I think there's so many more places now are doing those take-home boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be like a bit cheeky to ask if you could, take your food back, but now
Get a doggy bag, yeah.
Yeah, but now it's okay to ask. So, but yeah, because the Vibes Awards, it's kind of managed by SEPA, but it's also with Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Water, Highlands. Well, it was Highland Islands Enterprise. I know the enterprise agencies have changed now. Zero Waste Scotland, and there was quite a lot of obviously Scottish Government too. So there's quite a lot of different organisations, public sector organisations that were trying to improve the environment for businesses and trying to demonstrate that actually you can save money by reducing energy, by reducing your water, by reducing your raw product and that kind of thing, or trying to recycle and recover your waste. So it's quite interesting. Then so you go from the restaurants up to like the whiskey distillers, or I noticed there was the potato potato people, Albert Bartlett. They're on the they're there as well. So yeah, so it's quite interesting.
If the finalists have just been announced, I'm sure we could share the link to it, because I know that Brewster's one of our clients. They're one of the finalists, and they produce. So they take soil and aggregate from the construction sector and make new aggregates to put back into sites. So they're definitely one of the finalists. So no, we'll share that. We'll share that link. So in terms of obviously your most favourite role, Jane, is with Albion, but any other good experiences before you got here, or with Albion?
Well, when I first started with Babty, I think I'd been working there for like 3 or 4 weeks, and the guy, my boss, who's he sadly died last year or a couple of years ago, he said to me, "Do you fancy going to Hong Kong working in Hong Kong? And I'm like, yeah. So, so by that Christmas, I was out in Hong Kong.
Oh wow.
And it was brilliant. I was working kind of 6 weeks in Hong Kong and 6 weeks back in Scotland, and we were working as it was a great job because we were actually working on behalf of the Hong Kong government, doing sort of quality assurance work on the consultants who were doing the restoration of old landfill sites in Hong Kong. So there was about 7 landfill sites, old landfill sites, and what they were doing was restoring them, putting in gas utilization systems, capping systems, leachate management systems, because a lot of them were urban. So they're just like, you went into this landfill site, it was right in the middle of a house, really high-rise housing. And the consultants we were working with were Golder Associates. So it was great. It was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I was there over the handover as well. And yeah, so that was a really amazing, brilliant experience, both being able to work abroad, but also being working with other consultants as well, and getting that information and knowledge and hands-on experience. It was pretty amazing. And just so that's obviously one of my favorites. I like working in Hong Kong, but I do like the training of being in Albion and get to do quite a lot of training now as well. And what I like is going in to a group of, say, doing a lot of work with the NHS. You go into a group of work with a load of porters, just porters who move waste, everything, and not really that bothered about being there, but sitting there, and at the end of the session, them saying, "Wow, that was really interesting. I didn't know that. I really enjoyed that." So it's kind of that, because it gives you that satisfaction of giving people the information, and them actually, taking it on board rather than sitting there and falling asleep. So yeah.
Good. I like the idea of the Hong Kong. I like the Hong Kong job. I'd certainly be up for a job in Hong Kong if anybody has one.
I think it's experience in Hong Kong first, Alistair. I think that's ticks the boxes. That's mine. But yeah, it was. I also went over to Kuala Lumpur as well, where we bid for a job, and I went over there, and again, that was pretty amazing. We didn't get it, unfortunately, but it was quite an amazing experience. I went to Hong Kong a few years ago, and I hadn't been back for 20 years, and the difference was quite astounding, really. It was quite, definitely a difference.
Who would have thought, Jane? That's a good advert for our industry. Who would have thought the waste management industry could take you to America, Hong Kong,
I know.
all over the world?
Well, yeah, and I think somebody else said before, you go on your holidays and you end up taking photos of bins.
Yeah.
I remember I
would never do such a thing.
Yeah, I went to Australia and I kind of did a bit there as well, and I was like following this bin lorry thinking, where's that going? And it ended up in some sort of like, it was kind of not quite a hole, and it was all smouldering and burning away, and I'm thinking, right, okay, that's how they get rid of their rubbish here.
Oh, there we go.
Hmm,
Worth it for the crazy lady chasing the van.
I know.
You might get a few strange looks doing that.
Quite sad, but anyway, never mind. I enjoy it. It's good. I like it's kind of the business. It's interesting, and there's so many different aspects to it.
Yeah, I think that's what I've learned the most since being involved. You just from the outside, you have no idea how much goes on and how much it plays a role in everybody's like kind of day to day. So, yeah, I can totally get why you're hooked, and there's so much variety. So Jane, what we ask everyone, well, I suppose maybe slightly different because you've always known this is what you wanted to do. However, there sometimes is a stark difference between what people do at work and what they do in their personal life. So do you think being involved in the waste management industry has changed your opinions and your habits outside of work? Do you practice anything and champion your morals in everyday life with people your friends, your family?
Yes, although a lot of my friends are like, oh, for goodness sake, not again, not again. Yeah, I suppose I do. and with the kids as well, making sure that you've got your recycling, everything's where it should be, and you're recycling what you can. And I, even going to my son Lewis's flat when he was in Stirling at the University at Stirling, I went over to his flat, and there he had all his little containers for his glass, his cans, his plastic, and I'm like, well done, you were taught well.
Proud moment.
Absolutely proud mum moment. So yeah, I suppose I do. I think it's important, and I'm rubbish at rubbish, but I'm rubbish at throwing away. I hate throwing things away. So so going down and taking stuff to the charity shop and things like that is really important. I tell you, one of the things that I see, and it makes me quite mad, is when you go to these waste composition analysis, and you just see the amount of rubbish that people throw away that could be recovered, could be recycled. I mean, we were up in a waste composition analysis the other week, and it was like textiles, clothes, and they still had all their labels on. And it's like, why can't you take it to a charity shop? Why throw it away? And the amount of food that hasn't even been opened in packaging, like, potatoes or crisps and cans of Coke. I mean, who throws cans of Coke and crisps away? It's not like they go out of date, but it's that sort of thing that kind of just I just find frustrating, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
I think
yes.
so. And there's so many avenues that alternatives before you get thrown in the bin. Even what you were saying about food. Obviously you were talking about taking clothes and things to charity shops, or either upcycling them or donating them, or even reselling them now. If you like, people can resell their clothes. There's all the websites and things, but there's actually a really good wee, and I'm sure they're all over the place, and it's worth for anyone taking a look. There's a wee community kind of hub where I live now, and it's just a container next to a really popular walk along the canal, and they've started now. They just have a wee table outside and it's all free for anyone in the community, and it's pretty much food that have either been donated or they have had government support or funding for. They just leave it all out, big sign that says free of charge, take what you need. And it's the same thing. It's like potatoes, cans or bottles of juice, water, anything that probably people have either had too much of. If there's been any community events and they've bought stuff in that wasn't taken or wasn't sold, then they put it there. And I think there's probably places like that all over, especially Scotland and surrounding areas and small villages. And I think that's another good one, just another option for people to think. Sometimes you're cleaning out the fridge or the house and you think, God, I'm not going to use that, but what do I do with it? So it's just kind of reminding people there's always an option.
Yeah, I think so. It's just finding that option of where to take it, and thinking somebody must want it.
Yeah,
Somebody
absolutely.
must be able to make use of that. And I heard a load of duvets recently, and I'm thinking I can't just throw them out. So I took them to the Dogs Trust.
Yeah,
and they took them. So yeah, at least you feel like somebody's getting some benefit out of it.
absolutely.
I don't know whether that answered your question, Heather, but I went on a rant there.
No, absolutely. I think that's the number one. That's what you say, is this industry does just pretty much change the way you think about things, and that's what we want to do for everyone.
Yeah, I think it does. I think, my next door neighbour, she, well, not my next door neighbour, but, a few people, somebody said to me once, they said, oh, why don't people put out their brown bins? And I'm like, well, possibly because they don't put out their food waste anymore. They just throw it in their residual waste, because we're having to pay now for our for our food waste, because our food waste and garden waste is all in together. So if you purely only put your food waste in your bins, they'll take it for free. But if you put in garden waste in as well, it costs you, I think it's like 50 quid a year.
Oh, okay, wow.
Is that what they've done? Is that in what council used South Lanarkshire?
East Renfrewshire. Yeah.
How to not promote waste food recycling?
No. It's because people aren't now putting out their bins because they're not using it for garden waste. So they're just putting it in the residual waste. But anyway.
I remember having a conversation with my mother, who lives in Perthshire, and they started charging for the brown bins. So she's got a big garden, and she's got 2 brown bins, and she was like, up in arms because they were going to charge her 30 quid a year or something. And I'm like, and she was like, I could just take it to the household waste recycling site. I said, but you'll be travelling there about 50 times a month over the summer, the amount of stuff you produce.
Yeah.
I said, just pay her 30 quid and get on with it. And I think she did eventually just pay her 30 quid. But it's mad what people do if they think they're you know, I think especially people think they pay their council tax, therefore they deserve a service, and therefore they'll almost like make life hard for themselves because the council's try to raise more revenue or whatever. So there you go.
Anyway, it's like £1 a week or something. I mean, it's not really a big deal, is it?
In the whole scheme of things, my logic was the £1 a week or whatever it was going to cost, or the £2 a week was you know, more than offset by what it would cost her to drive the household waste recycling site and all the effort to get the car loaded and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah.
So there we go. Anyway, in terms of obviously a busy life, Jane, how do you get away from work and relax?
Oh, I love my cycling. So I love my cycling, and I started out from water swimming as well a few years ago. So I really like doing that. I did a coast to coast cycle route a few weeks ago from Whitehaven and Cumbria over to Tyneside, with a load of friends, which was I just loved it. It was brilliant, and the weather was fantastic, and it was quite a long way and quite hilly. But I just think, you know, for me, that's just a real challenge, and I really like doing that. I like getting out on my bike because it just means I can switch off and do stuff. And then the open water swimming, I kind of got into it sort of lockdown. A lot of people did, and you know, perhaps a lot of women of a certain age got into it at the same time. And you know, and at one point I was out in the winter and swimming in the ice and all this sort of stuff. But this year, I didn't quite manage it this year. I was a bit of a warm weather swimmer. So, but yeah, it's good. That's what I like to do.
That sounds far more sensible. And you've got, if I'm right in thinking, you've got an event coming up, haven't you?
Yes. Well, yeah, there's a triathlon at Irvine coming up on Sunday, but I'm just doing it, well, we're doing it as a team. My friend's doing the whole thing. He's doing the triathlon, and I've got a team. So I've got somebody who's really good at swimming, and then I'm doing the cycling, and I've got a lady who's good at running. So my friend Jane, she's good at running. So we're going to do it as a team. I did a bit of a recce last weekend. So yeah, it's good. I'm looking forward to it actually. Hope the weather's good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
We went swimming into the Booker's Pond or Shorten Wall, whatever they call it. It was 18 degrees in the water.
Wow.
Why is this warm? That's really warm.
Because it's been sunny.
Yeah. Well, make the most of it.
It's quite deep, that pond, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the person who is measuring it, I think the thermometer is on the surface, so I think it's probably a bit deeper as you go down. But surface temperature. Yeah. But it was good. It was nice.
There you go. And I hesitate before I ask the next question is really what's next for you in your career, but I maybe shouldn't ask you that.
Oh, you know, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I enjoy what I do. I like the variety of jobs. I'd like to retire, but you know, I need to keep going. I've got at least another 10 years.
Well, you've just taken on a new job, James.
Oh yeah,
podcast host, so you're not going anywhere.
I know. I heard that said it was being a promotion. I'm just wondering about the remuneration and part of the
It's one of these promotions that just involves you doing more work for less money. That's the
story of my life. That good job. I like what I do, eh?
Absolutely. Yep. So Jane, I'm hoping you've got something in mind now. So we ask everybody one fact that you would want to share either from your job or from the sector, that you think people may not know? Have you got one in mind?
Well, do you know, I've been looking at this question that you gave me, and I've been thinking and thinking and thinking. And there's so many facts. And I think, I suppose a lot of the facts I've got are, if you, what was there, 63 million people in the UK thrown away, and there's like 1.13 tons per person being thrown away per year. And I suppose I'm thinking about, well, if the people throw it away, if we can reduce the amount of even one plastic bottle a year per person, I mean, that is just, well, 63 million plastic bottles.
Yeah.
So, it's not really a fact or anything really exciting, but I suppose it's just reminding people that every little counts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we said at the start of the recording when we talked about the statistics to do with the vapes. Sometimes that's what it takes, especially for people who aren't in the industry. It's these really kind of headline catching, eye-watering figures that normally do it for people. And I think a lot of the challenge we've talked about with our guests as well is trying to convince people that, yeah, even just small changes do make a difference. And I think that's a perfect summary of it, because think of the amount of people in the UK, as your example said, make one small change. In the grand scale of things, it's a huge difference. So I think that's perfect.
Thank you. I think it's a good one.
Next question we always ask is, any habits or changes you'd like to tell the public about that would help manage waste or improve recycling or help the overall environment?
I suppose mine is, don't buy what you don't need. And that's easy to say because everybody does it, and I suppose it's just seeing all those textiles and clothes without tags on, and the food that's still in packets and stuff, and toys still in boxes as well from these composition analysis. And I suppose it's like that. It's don't buy what you don't need, or if you do buy it, try and recover it or recycle it, or do something with it, with throwing it in the bin being the last resort.
No, that sounds good. Sounds good. So you've rhymed off quite a few acronyms already, but your favorite industry acronym and why?
My favorite industry, well, it's kind of just at the, it changes depending on what's happening in the world, but at the moment it's BAT. And it's not about bat as in the little thing that squeaks and flies around the air, it's best available techniques. And it's what, I suppose it's what every industry operation should be doing. So what's available and what can be done when you're looking at going for a waste management license or a PPC permit. They're asking you to consider what are the best available techniques and how would you use them. And then there's also the BREF, which is the BAT reference documents, which are great big documents depending on what industry you're in and what operations are being undertaken, and you can look at those, and it tells you about odor, it tells you about water, it tells you all sorts of things. So I guess that is I don't say it was my favorite jargon, but that's probably the one that everybody's talking about at the moment.
Yep, good one.
I
was lecturing last week and I was talking about BAT assessments and BREFs and all sorts. It's very, very fresh in my mind as well, and probably fresh in quite a lot of people's minds. So your chance to have a magic wand to sort out the mad world of waste that we live in. Any ideas what you'd like to use it for?
I suppose it's using it, I'm going to say, to reduce the waste, but it's looking at the manufacturers of waste in the first place to make it easier for people to recover and recycle things. So it's making things less complicated and able to use things and replace them, or replace a battery, or recover this, or reuse this, or put another cover on it, or something like that, rather than having to throw things away or buy new ones. So I suppose that's what I would want, because you can't, people need things. We all need things. We all want things as well. But yeah.
I saw an absolute perfect example of that, Jane, and how not to do it the other day. So somebody posted up on LinkedIn, so that the BT had managed to disconnect the broadband service, and the only way they could get back onto the service was to get a new router sent to them and set up the new router, and that allowed them back in the broadband. And then they were to send their old router, which there was absolutely nothing wrong with, apart from they disconnected it, back for recycling. And he quite rightly went back to BT and said, why can I not just use my old router? And BT was, well, our system does not support that. So there was nothing technically wrong with the router. It was just the fact that their system for doing things didn't allow them to reconnect that router, which is just madness, from an environmental and sustainability point of view, it's just madness. And their answer to him was, oh, but we'll recycle your old router. And you and I know the reality of that is, how much that has actually really been recycled is probably very little, whereas reuse is a much better option. So,
it's just nuts, isn't it? It's like all the phones, all the old versions of the phones, and you have to buy a new one because they don't support the apps, or they don't support the upgrades or whatever. So, they're no good anymore. So you've got to buy a new one. It's just daft, just nuts.
There you go. Well, I'm sure we can add you to the list of Magic Wand users to try and change the world.
Yeah, we've got quite a good few suggestions in there, so I'm sure we'd find good use for it. So finally, Jane, you're probably one of the most qualified to hopefully answer this final question. Do you have any advice for anyone wanting to follow either a similar career path to your own, or just to find their way and find what they're passionate about in the industry? Either how to get started, where to look, opportunities to seek?
I would say speak to people. I mean, it is such an industry where it is who you know as well as what you know. I mean, the way I've kind of moved jobs and stuff, even my first job was, by knowing somebody who knew somebody who could put in a good word, and then you get an interview. If you're rubbish at the interview or whatever, then fair enough. But getting that step in to anywhere is really gives you that step up, really. So if you know anybody, talk to people. And I think, who was it the other day was saying, was it Pamela was saying about leaving seat, and how if people talk to them, they would give them a bit of work experience and that sort of thing. So I think it's work experience. It's saying, right, okay, I can do this, or I can help you with that, or I can try this. And it's about talking to people, knowing people, finding out, asking the daft laddie questions, I suppose, as well. How do you do that? What do you do?
Yeah.
Can I do that? And the thing is, the industry is so wide. I mean, you've got from, you look at the backgrounds. We've got, Heather, I mean, my degree is in geology and then in engineering, and then yours is kind of marketing, and that sort of, that side of it. So it's quite a big, wide range from those two, and in between you've got process engineers, you've got environmentalists, you've got people who can actually write reports, which is quite important as well. And all these different things. So whatever you've got, whatever qualifications you've got, we can fit somewhere in the waste industry, and it's not that bad an industry either.
I think you've summed it quite well, to be honest.
It's got lots of nice people in there, lots of good people to chat to, and you can, if you're lucky, you get to go to Hong Kong,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I think
or
you're
Shetland.
right.
I mean, I got to go to Shetland as well, and that was a good experience.
beautiful part of the world,
It
absolutely.
was amazing.
I think you're right. Everyone we've had on, I think Pamela was definitely one at Leaving Seat. I think Jim Brown as well at Burning Group. Nearly everyone has said, you know, as everyone does say, the industry, everyone knows each other. If they don't, they know somebody that knows someone to introduce you. And nearly, you know, probably 99% of places that you asked if they would give you, if they've got an operational site, they would let you take go around on a tour. They'd let you see what they do. They're quite happy to let the public in and see the good things that they're doing. So I think that's good advice.
Yeah, speak to people. That's my advice. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Jane. That was a great introduction, and I'm looking forward to episode. What will be episode 30? It's not going to be episode 13 when myself and Jane host, is it? I have a feeling that it isn't.
Oh well, you know, yeah, my favourite number. Sorted.
You might
Yeah.
you might be getting a wee phone call to your new international location, Heather. Help.
Yeah, that's right. Heather, can you be the interviewee, the next interviewee?
Well, I'm always a phone call away. I certainly won't be a stranger. So yeah, thanks a lot, Jane, for giving us your time, and thank you for offering to replace me and come on alongside Alistair for our podcasts going forward. I think it'll be great, and I'm looking forward to listening to the first one where I don't hate the sound of my own voice on it. So that'll be fun.
Well, any advice or any suggestions, gratefully received. Constructive criticism, gratefully received.
My moral is I don't listen to myself. That's how I found. That's how I deal with it.
Well, there's always that.
Anyway.
Unfortunately, I was the one that had to record it and then edit it and listen back to my own voice, so I had no choice, unfortunately.
I mean, it's been good. I've really enjoyed the interaction between yourself, Heather, and yourself, Alistair. So, you know, hopefully I'll try my best. I've got big shoes to fill. Not saying you've got big feet, Heather, but you know, thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
And just finally for myself, Heather, once again, thank you for getting thrown a mad idea just before Christmas and making it work, and good luck in your new I was going to say your new career, but I think you'll be back in waste management before you know it. So I might have cursed your future career there, but never mind.
Hopefully not, but I'm certainly not abandoning the industry. But yeah, I'll find a way to get involved, and I'll as we often like to have is a bit of a blog on the Rubbish Talk website of people's international travels and how they observe waste being managed, as we've discussed in this episode. So you never know, I might be the next blog feature on the website when I tell you what they do in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Jane.